Hi, welcome to HTML, the Basics 2. In this tutorial we're going to talk a little bit more about HTML tags you're going to see. Again, this is intended for someone just getting started. This is step 1 or 2 depending on how you want to count it, into just getting a little more familiar with what you're seeing. Not necessarily how to put it together, just to kind of get familiar with what you're seeing. If you're beyond needing to know what the tags are that you're seeing, please go ahead and move forward into a more advanced topic. Otherwise, I hope you get a lot out of this. Okay, we're going to switch back to Notepad++. And we started with this over here, and we're going to go ahead and move past that to this page just to give you a little bit more idea of the type of tags you will probably be using the most and seeing the most as you try to get familiar. So let's go ahead and get started with our anchor tag here, which anytime you want to use a link, anchor tags where you're going to need to make sure you fill that in. So even though, like, if you go to W3 Schools, it'll show the little A in brackets. Well, an A is never really by itself. You're always going to have your href, you know, your reference to where the link is going. So in this case, we're doing it to my website, which, you know, if you have questions and you don't feel like posting it as a comment, you can go to my site and go to contact us. Please feel free to fill out the form requesting tutorials. I'm not sure what it's going to look like by the time you get there. I have the tendency to play with it a lot. So, but just find the contact us form and just put YouTube tutorial, either question or request, down in there, and you know, I do try to keep up with that as much as I can. So back to the topic. Inside the opening and closing anchor tags, you're going to see the text, or whether you're going to put an image or whatnot that you're actually going to be linking. So that way that's going to be what's clicked. Now remember, if you only want one word clicked or clickable, don't put the entire sentence, just put the word you want highlighted within that anchor. And then when you're done, go ahead and close it out with the opening bracket / lowercase a closing bracket. Next we're going to move on to image. Again, this is a self-closing tag, for unlike a lot of the others where you have to have the opening and closing. Image is a self-contained, just like your breaks or your lines. So we're going to start with the opening IMG, then you're going to have your source. Most commonly you're going to see one of two things in here. You're either going to see a relative path with your image, or you're going to see something like, let's say I have the image somewhere else that I'm hosting, so I go ahead and put it like this. So it's actually a full path on the web. Reason you would do this, if you use Craigslist, this is a must. And this is why I mention it, because if you're going to be using Craigslist, if you want to make your own little web page style, yeah, you can upload, I'm trying to think, I know it's used to be 4, I'm not sure what the limit is now, and how many images you can upload. But like, let's say you want it in an actual style, you want a page, maybe you're selling your house, your car, you want to put a bunch of photos on it because you don't want people emailing you going, yeah, I want to see more photos. So you can create your own little web page and paste it directly into Craigslist. Well, to do that, you're going to need to use Flickr or PhotoBucket, or if you have a website and you can spare a folder up on your server, you can put them in there and just refer to the absolute path of that image. So hopefully that makes sense at this stage. We're going to keep moving on. If it doesn't, as we get moving more towards putting full pieces together, you'll see more demonstrations. At this point, we're just trying to kind of, again, familiarize you with what you're going to see out there. The next, I put a couple of paragraphs, but instead of just doing the standard paragraph, I put 2 different items within that opening tag. The closings are the same, but the first paragraph and the second, I put a class of article. The second, I put ID of notes, and the other one of marketing, as you can see. Reason I did that is because you can see either or. If you're not using anything like JavaScript, jQuery, doing any sort of call of ID, you may or may not see the ID, but you might see the class. Or vice versa, you might see the ID filled in, but you might not see a class. Or you can see both. If I'm doing a jQuery call, I'm going to have the ID for the identifier. But if I just want to do a CSS class for anything under a paragraph, I can create that as well, so that way I can have them talk separately. So enough of that. Again, that's kind of moving along. I just want you to start getting pieces that you're going to see out there. This one is a break. So if I'm typing, and I want to go to the next line, but I don't necessarily want to start a new paragraph, I can put that BR in, and that will act as a break. Most of the time, depending again on different things, most of the time that BR is actually going to act like this, to where it's the next line. A paragraph is most likely going to give you that full gap. So just so you know, if you want a paragraph space with an extra line, you're probably going to have to put 2 of these line breaks in there, looking, pretty much like this. And I usually put 1 at the end and then 1 at the next line, just so I kind of can see it, what I'm doing. And then I'll keep typing. So there's that. I'm going to get rid of the gibberish here. Next, I'm showing you just the different headers. I'm not really going to talk about them, but this is going to be your largest. This is going to be your smallest, and this is by default. Once we get into the CSS, if you decide you want to make it the opposite by forcing it otherwise, you can. But just know, by standard, H1 is your largest header, H6 is going to be your smallest, and in between gives you some additional options for it to be a header, but to vary up some sizes depending on the purpose of that header tag. Next, we're going to go to lists. This is an unordered list, meaning that you're generally going to get a bullet or a diamond, which we'll talk about styling a little later on. But this is your unordered list. Your next one here is your ordered list, and that is generally going to be classified by numbers. Notice the only difference between these two is O versus the U in my opening, my closing. The way the rest of the list gets put together is the same. So lists are pretty simple. You just need to know, which one you're wanting it labeled like, and of course, if you're going to code them differently as far as applying the markers, then generally you're going to use an unordered unless you want the 1, 2, 3. Again, these are just some basics to start with. Now we'll move on to tables. This is a very common way of organizing information. It is getting a bit outdated, but sometimes it's just necessary. So you're going to need to make sure you really understand the flow of a table. I mean, if we look at it here, and if you indent properly, it's pretty easy to see the structure. I mean, opening, table tag, closing. I got my table row, my closing, and I got my data within. But what does that mean? Some people don't understand the flow. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to get rid of my title here and just kind of do a really poor man's version of drawing, since I'm definitely not an artist. And so let's see if I can make this somewhat look alright. Yay! It's not too awful. So this whole thing obviously is the table, but here's where it makes it easier to see it this way. This is your table row. Each one of these is a table row. Just like a spreadsheet, these are the rows, these are the columns. Well, the way HTML tables are structured is we classify rows. After that, it's by these are the table datas within to classify the cells. Now, these need to match. Like, I can't do 3, then 2, then 1 without doing some trickier stuff. So once I say I want 3 columns, then I'm going to make sure I've got 3 table data groups, and for each table row I'm going to make sure I have 3. Otherwise I'm going to have to do something like call span things like that in order to, group these two together. But anyway, so the reason I show you this is because a lot of people get confused when they're trying to edit a table, going, well, shoot, how do I change just this cell? Well, here's the basic way. You count rows top to bottom, cells left to right. So which grouping of table rows am I going to go for? Here's my 1, here's 2. So I want to change this one, so I'm looking for the second grouping of table rows. And here's my 1, 2, 3. So the third table data, and we'll switch back over. So here's 1, here's 2. So I'm at my second, so 1, 2, 3. So if I want to change what's in that cell, that's how I'm going to figure out which cell it's in. I left it clean because obviously once you start getting stuff in, it can get a little more confusing, and you can style up tables. But that I know for myself that the table was not, until someone pretty much did the same drawing I just showed you guys. At the beginning it was like, okay, I kept going top to bottom and then left to right, and it's not. It's like reading a book, but you got your groupings are always going to be in these table rows. So that's pretty much the main tags you're going to see. So I hope you enjoyed it. We're going to move on from there into more structural, hopefully some more practical stuff for you to have fun with. Thanks for watching.